Welcome to the Why on Earth Community Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Perry, and today we're visiting with Lem Tingley, the CEO and CGO of Growing Spaces. That's CGO, Chief Growing Officer. Lem, it's great visiting with you.
Great, it's great to be here. Nice to have you.
We're so excited to get to experience the inside of your domes and share with our audience a bunch of the specifics as to how you're helping people in communities all over grow a lot more food right in their own yards, right in their own neighborhoods. And of course, we've also got some special discounts if you're interested in getting a dome through GrowingSpaces.com. So we'll get to all that information for folks. But first, let me tell people a little about your background,
Great.
Lem. So Lem grew up outside Boston, Massachusetts, and came to Colorado every year as a kid for ski vacations. So he fell in love with the Rocky Mountain West at an early age. He attended the University of Colorado in Boulder and graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering, which led to working for the last 25 years in manufacturing, both in Colorado and offshore. Lem is married to his wife Liz, and they live in Golden, Colorado with their 3 teenage boys. I guess you guys are busy.
Yep.
And so he shared with us that he was laid off from his previous job in engineering and felt like it was a good opportunity to either start or purchase a company in some sort of sustainable technology. And so having heard of Growing Spaces through his brother-in-law and having learned that the founder owners were retiring and selling their business, Lem and Liz jumped on it, and they immediately came down to Pagosa Springs, which is where we are, to meet Udgar and Pooja Parsons, and you'll get to see a little interview with them later on, the founders, and they fell in love with them and what they had created in this small town in Colorado. So Lem and his wife purchased Growing Spaces in April of 2018 and are now expanding the company organically. And Lem, it's such a joy to know a bit about your story, how you got here, and what you're doing now with the company going forward. And I guess let me just first start by asking, what was it about Colorado that caused you to fall in love with this place?
Yeah, well, I was a big skier growing up back east, and you have to learn to ski on ice back there, so that's all you get is big blue ice. So coming out to Colorado every week, we went to Utah, Wyoming every year, was just a joy. And I remember one year, I think junior year in high school, we came to Breck for a week in February, powder day every day, just skiing powder every day. And my parents talked me into visiting CU Boulder on the way back to the airport. On the way back, we visited Boulder. It was 70 degrees and sunny in the middle of February. Kids were outside in their shorts, playing Frisbee, just having the ball. And I love hiking and biking and all that, so it just felt like just a beautiful environment to be at and study and also get some skiing in at the same time. So it was purely for selfish reasons, but I've never regretted it and never moved out of Colorado since I was 18.
Yeah. I think that's a familiar story for a number of us. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so interested to hear more about your engineering background and how you're going to apply that and are applying that to improve some efficiencies in your manufacturing process. And these domes are extraordinary. They're extraordinarily strong structures. They create these growing environments in cold climates where we can grow tropical and subtropical plants. Mm-hmm. So maybe can you just give us an overview of where we are right now and what Growing Spaces is making available to people?
Yeah, absolutely. We're here in Pagosa Springs. Growing Spaces has 6 different sizes domes that we sell. We're currently in the 33-foot diameter dome, which is our second biggest size. Later today, I'll show you some 42-foot domes that we have down at the Geothermal Partnership. But we have all the other smaller sizes here on site, ranging from 15 feet all the way up to the 42 feet. So this is our second biggest dome. We get a lot of good gardening space in here. Behind us, you see a water tank. This is basically the battery of the system. It acts as a thermal mass both in the summertime to help keep the dome cool and humid, and in the wintertime, the sun will reflect off that Reflectix insulation, heat the pond during the day, and then at night emit that heat back out to keep your plants warm and moist all night long, all winter long, without any external heat. So you don't need any electricity, propane, as long as you're doing frost-hardy plants in the wintertime. If you want to do tropicals, grow tomatoes year round, you can. You just need to add a little bit of heat to your dome during the coldest months of the year.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're growing year round without any additional fossil fuels.
It's amazing. And you told me beforehand that you guys have domes in every state. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Over the 30-year history of Growing Spaces, we've shipped probably about 3,000 domes to all 50 states, about 15 countries across the globe.
Wow.
The dome definitely works best in the Rocky Mountain climate here in Colorado. About half our sales are here in Colorado because of the extreme weather. We use a 5-wall poly, which is really has a high R value, almost 3, as well as being snow resistant, hail resistant, and just the shape of the geodesic dome, the Buckminster Fuller dome, really is good against wind. It really just pushes the dome back down into the earth, so you're never going to have your rectangular greenhouse get hit by a flat surface and get blown off your property.
The way it goes,
we get a lot of dome owners calling, my greenhouse is in my neighbor's yard, right? We need something a little more wind resistant.
Oh, wow.
The geodesic shape is perfect. But the real value of it is it tracks the sun all day long. You get nice even sun for your plants all day long. You don't have any flat surfaces that will bake your plants during the noonday sun. And you just get nice even sun throughout the day. It's another advantage of the geodesic shape.
Yeah. Well, this is so wonderful. So a little later on, we will visit with one of your gardeners and educators, Heather Gray, talking about soil and how to care best for the plants in this kind of environment. And then later, we're actually going to go over to Pagosa High School and visit with the principal over there. And they're building a dome right now for their students,
we're
right?
Really excited about that. Yeah, they're building a 42-foot dome for their students, both their vocational students and their culinary arts students.
Yeah, that's really awesome. They're giving those students that kind of exposure and experience so early on in their professional lives, really.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll visit with the founders of this company, Pooja and Udgar Parsons, who have been real pioneers in this whole sustainability movement for several decades. So it's going to be a real treat, I think, the way we get to flow through these different pieces of the podcast today.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really excited to meet with Udgar and Pooja. They've been retired for the last 2 years, but still involved down there with the domes at the Geothermal Project. So they're doing great work down there for the community and the local food hubs. So I'm excited to meet with them again as well.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Well, let me ask this. These structures, take some money, and one thing we want to be sure to mention to our audience is that if you mention Why on Earth when you connect with Growing Spaces, you can connect by growing-spaces.com, or if you click through the Growing Spaces logo anywhere from the Why on Earth web ecosystem, our partnership and sponsor page or our podcast page, you will get a 5% discount when you get your dome. And demand has been so high, in large part because of COVID, it seems, that production is out several months. So if you are thinking about getting a dome, it's a really good idea to connect with Lem and his team soon to get in the queue. But one of the things that jumped right out at me, Lem, with the information that you sent over, is that you guys are not only selling these domes, you're doing amazing work with education on YouTube and through your Facebook groups. And you're also working with low-income communities and with the Navajo Nation, for example, and you're doing some special grants in urban and low-income communities related to the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you would just speak to that kind of community service work that you guys are doing, because I think it's extraordinary.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting, and I'm excited to be at this point. We've owned the business for 2 years, and our sales were pretty flat from when we took over the business those first 2 years. So we were really just trying to pay off our loans and our debts, and so we didn't have a lot of money left over to kind of do the charitable projects. But when my wife and I bought the business, we really had the long-term goal to put a portion of our profits back into the community. So COVID has really been, it's been horrible for the world and the nation, but it is teaching people the value of controlling their own food source and being able to go into their backyard and pick their vegetables for lunch or for dinner, as well as have a nice sanctuary just like we are here to sit and relax. So the phone's been ringing off the hook since March. We are booked out several months. But the benefit of that for us is we're able to give back. And so we have one dome plan for Navajo Nation, like you mentioned. They've been really impacted by COVID, and they're very family oriented, and that's part of the reason why it's spread. But they really want to try to get back to their roots of farming and growing their own food and being self-sustainable, because they've kind of lost that part of their culture there at Navajo Nation. And even they really are in a food desert. They don't have access to fresh organic food. So we've met some people down there. The founders, Ugar and Puja, had built a couple domes down there as well, who are really trying to bring back local farming, local family farms to the community. So we've donated one of our 26-foot greenhouses to Navajo Nation. We do have a fundraiser that we link to from our website to help with some of the site prep, the bed materials, the soil, everything else that goes into that project. That's on our Facebook page right now. But another project I'm really excited about that we started before COVID was with a local veterans community called Matterville Vets. And they're based in the Denver area. And they have two communities, one in Sedalia and one in Hartselle, Colorado. What they're doing is building tiny homes, sustainable communities for veterans with PTSD, to kind of give them a place to really, a sanctuary for them to really recover, as well as grow their own food, do their own work around the property, and really be off-grid and sustainable. And one unique thing about that project is they've adopted some wolves from Rocky Mountain Wildlife Refuge that where the owner retired, and so now they've paired the vets with PTSD with the wolves.
Oh, wow.
And the wolves are trained to comfort the vets when they have nightmares, and it's just an amazing place. My kids and I have been up there to help build pens and kind of get the property in Sedalia built up, and then the next step is to start doing the site prep, and we've donated a 26-foot greenhouse to them as well, so wonderful. They can grow their own food year-round.
Wow.
There for Matterville Vets. So we're really excited about that project.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of research coming out about how working with soil and working with plants really helps with PTSD. Mm-hmm. And there are different veterans communities doing these sorts of gardening projects for that very reason. The neurobiochemistry is affected, and it just allows people's nervous systems to calm down, which is so important.
Right, it's so important for special needs kids and education. We've had examples, and when we go down to the GGP Dome and the Education Dome, of special needs kids who really do just calm down when they enter the dome, get their hands dirty, and it's night and day. So it's really exciting to be part of this project.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah. Well, and just spending some time in the Pagosa community today, it's clear this is a really tight-knit community, and what you guys are doing here as a local manufacturer providing jobs and all of that is also of great benefit to the local economy. Yeah,
absolutely. When we do hire a lot of veterans, we have a lot of veterans on staff. We'll visit the vocational school where they're building the dome. We really hope to use that program to hire new kids, because what happens here in Pagosa is a lot of kids, they go out of high school and then they leave town. Yeah. And there's a huge gap in the workforce. There is a lot of construction in town, so there's a lot of construction jobs, there's a lot of restaurant jobs, huge tourist industry, but there is a gap in that kind of millennial range of good workforce. So we're trying to bring in people not only to help manufacture the domes and install the domes, but gardeners, salespeople. Our salespeople are gardeners, so we can really kind of help our customers through the learning experience when it comes to growing in a new dome. Because the technology really sells itself. We're not really salespeople. Yeah. We're all everybody but me here is a gardener. I can't say that I'm a gardener, but I'm learning.
You're a gardener in training.
I'm a gardener in training, and that's why I've lined up Heather and Ugar and Puja to kind of help kind of talk about the gardening aspect of the dome. But
that's great.
I'm learning, and I'm learning in our dome in Golden as well that we have there. So.
Well, and it was wonderful to recently have the opportunity to interview my good buddy Brian Dillon with his dome up in the mountains, and he was sharing that the Facebook groups are this amazing online community where people are sharing information, and you guys are active. And I'm just curious if you might describe for our audience a little bit kind of what's going on in that ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. We have two Facebook groups. One's called Growing Dome Enthusiasts, and one's called Growing Dome Owners. So Growing Dome Owners is limited to owners only. So that's where we get a lot of really good conversations about how the dome is performing. You know, we talk about pest problems, we talk about cooling your dome in the summertime, we talk about heating your dome in the winter if you're going to heat your dome in the winter. Different ways of optimizing your dome. They're getting a lot into aquaponics systems, hydroponics systems, decks built over the pond. But the Growing Dome Enthusiast page is actually really thriving as well, and that's other people who are interested in purchasing a dome or really just interested in greenhouse gardening or geodesic technology can come and ask questions more about the planning of the growing dome, what it takes to get through your building department, your HOA, the foundation techniques, and we have a lot of owners on that site as well giving advice to future owners, and then we're always monitoring it and making sure their questions are getting answered. But it's very low touch for us because we have a huge community of growing dome owners who are on those pages helping our customers out. As well as nationally, if they're not in Colorado and don't have the ability to come to either Golden or Pagosa to see a dome, they can ask, hey, I'm in Pennsylvania, does anybody have a dome I can see? And people will raise their hands and say, yeah, come check out my dome. So it's a really good community from that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of community, one of the things we've been observing through the Y on Earth Community Network in this time of COVID, as more and more people are gardening and wanting to take back more control over their food supply, we're seeing in many HOAs and in many apartment complexes and so forth, a lot of folks don't have the ability to garden. In some HOAs, we're seeing that it's essentially required to spray poisons to kill things like dandelions, right? Which is really sad and makes no sense. And I know you and I have begun a conversation around some of the efforts that Y on Earth is cooking up to help kind of move the HOA frameworks forward so that we're not poisoning our kids and our pets in our communities, and we're making gardening a more central aspect of our American culture. And I'm curious, with the domes, what kind of issues you've been running into with different HOAs out there?
Yeah, really similar issues. I mean, HOA boards kind of see the dome as a very unique structure. They're non-rectangular, so they kind of look different. Yeah. So anytime you have a community, so that doesn't look right, they're not going to allow it in the community, regardless of what it's for. But you mentioned my brother-in-law, who kind of turned us on to Growing Spaces. When he first went to his HOA, they did reject him. 100% of the board rejected him. And then Growing Spaces actually helped him with a presentation to really talk about the benefit of the dome and what he was trying to accomplish. He'd had a stroke, his wife has health issues, so growing healthy organic food year-round was a real benefit to their own health. Yeah. He showed pictures of inside the dome and the vegetables, and he went back with that information, and they approved it unanimously.
Wow.
So as soon as they kind of learned what the dome was for and really the beauty of the entire structure and the inside of the dome, they approved it. So we really do help our customers try to navigate that HOA process and really talk about the benefits of the dome.
Yeah, it seems so important that a lot of what we're running into with barriers and roadblocks is a matter of education, huh? And presenting the information in a way that's not threatening and explains benefits.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a dome owner from the Ukraine, actually, who came to the U.S., and in the Ukraine, everybody's front yard, everybody's backyard was a garden. And she came to the U.S. and saw all this green grass everywhere and said, where do you grow your food? I don't understand. And so they bought a huge property up in Bailey, Colorado, with huge gardens, a traditional greenhouse, as well as a 42-foot growing dome, and they're just growing like crazy. And she's actually a chef at a local restaurant, so she grows for the restaurant as well. Oh, wow. So it's a really good story. And I know there's a lot of organizations out of Boulder that are really working on transitioning people's yards into gardens, so we can have more local food sources. And then, like you said, we need to eliminate the pesticides as well.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to stress, to emphasize this connection between local, fresh, organic food and maintaining our health and well-being and avoiding disease. And, we have so many folks in our culture suffering from all kinds of diseases. Well, a lot of the times the food that we're eating is so disconnected from the healthy soil and so on. It's critical that we make that connection very close, a part of everyday life. And it seems that the domes make that possible in a lot of different contexts for people.
Absolutely. It all starts with the soil. When we meet Heather, she'll talk about what she's done in our domes with the soil. We made a transition in March when COVID first hit. Our domes used to be really about the beauty of the dome and the variety of the dome. You could really grow anything you want in these, but we made a shift to really focus on production.
Yeah.
The food hubs were struggling here even before COVID because it is a food desert here in Pagosa. We just did get a natural grocer, so we're all excited about that.
Nice.
Here in Pagosa. But we're donating all the food from these 5 domes into the local food hubs. And she's really done a great job transitioning the domes to optimize production of fruits and vegetables for the community.
Are you finding there's a particular fruit or vegetable that seems to just thrive and produce a ton in this environment?
We always say tomatoes. We put a tomato
yeah.
on our logo because they take off. I've seen tomatoes just all take over some domes where literally you have to trim them every day.
Yeah.
And when we go down to the geothermal project, they're doing really well with their tomatoes as well. So
Yeah.
we always say tomatoes are do amazing, but so many other things thrive. Swiss chard always does real well. Kale.
Yeah.
Grapes are great because they provide natural shade for the dome, and you can train them up on the southwest side to really provide some additional natural shade as well as natural transpiration. The more vegetation you have in the dome, you'll feel the energy, you'll feel the moisture come off the plants. It's a really nice environment. It really does feel like you're in Florida.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm just observing that the chard you have over here and next to it looks like romaine. Mm-hmm. These plants look picture perfect. I mean, they look so happy.
Yeah, and we've been harvesting them like crazy, so it's amazing. Yeah, behind me, she just harvested, I think, some arugula. So we got some carrots over here that seem to be doing really well.
Beautiful.
So it's really exciting.
Well, and I notice also that rosemary just thrives, and I've tried rosemary a bunch of years in Colorado, and often during the winter months, even if you're bringing them inside, if they're potted, they tend not to do so well, but here they are just jamming. It's
rosemary
beautiful.
And sage both do really well in the domes. All kinds of herbs, microgreens grow real well, and you can turn them really quick and harvest them really quick as well. We have a lot of chefs doing microgreens and herbs for the restaurants as well.
Yeah, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Lem, let me just take this opportunity to remind our audience that this is the Why on Earth Community Podcast, and today we're visiting with Lem Tingley, the Chief Growing Officer of Growing Spaces. And I want to thank our sponsors and give a shout out to the folks who are helping to make this podcast episode possible, as well as our community mobilization work for soil regeneration, climate action, health and wellness, neighborhood resilience, and culture of kindness. And that includes Earth Coast Productions. In fact, I'll give a shout out to Artem Nikolkov, the owner of Earth Coast. He's manning the cameras here for us today. And that includes also the Lidge Family Foundation, Purium, of course, Growing Spaces, and go to growingspaces.com, mention Why on Earth to get a discount, Soil Works, Earth Water Press, and Waylay Waters. And of course, with Waylay Waters, the CBD-infused aromatherapy soaking salts, if you go to whyonearth.org/waylay-waters, you can join the monthly giving program at certain levels and receive monthly shipments of those soaking salts for your health and well-being. So that's a wonderful additional bonus there. And then I want to give a special shout out as well to all the folks who have joined our monthly giving program at a variety of different levels. And we really appreciate your support. And everything that we're doing here is a community effort and is being done on the strength of our relationships and connecting with leaders like you, Lem, who are making so much available to folks. And it's really such a joy sitting in this space. And I'm wondering, I imagine there must be times when business can get a little stressful at times, and I imagine maybe you might just come out here sometimes just to be in the dome and be with the plants. Is that part of the experience for you?
Absolutely. It's just so relaxing to be in here and just pick some fresh beans off the vine and taste them while you just sit here and relax, or read a book, even make some phone calls in the dome. It's just such a relaxing space to be in.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm just so thankful to be a part of it. We're very fortunate to have come across this business and be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Well, I'm wondering, should we should we take a pause on our conversation here and go visit with Heather and see what she's doing with the soil and the plants?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a tour and we'll meet Heather.
Cool. And then we'll meet back up here, huh?
Okay, sounds good.
Great. So, hey folks, here we are. We're in the 18-foot dome, and we're visiting with Heather Gray, who is educator and gardener par excellence here at Growing Spaces. And so Heather, I'm so excited for you to share with us some of your techniques, what you're doing with soil and what you're doing with ventilation to maintain super healthy and productive plants here in these domes.
Well, we started with really good soil, alpaca manure, and the bedding of the alpacas, and it wasn't fully broken down, so we treated it with, and continued to treat with mycorrhiza and good bacteria and fish emulsion and seaweed and proper watering, not too much, not too little, and just keep it in a healthy environment, and slowly it builds to lots and lots of wormies.
Oh yeah, I see some right there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can you show the camera?
Yeah. There's small
Some
little
nice
wormies
worms,
in
yeah.
there.
Little red wigglers maybe.
Yeah. There's night crawlers in there too.
Okay.
But you'll see them when you go to the 33.
Uh-huh.
But you see it's broken down. It used to be like wood chips and it kind of drained through, but now
Yeah.
it holds water really well.
Yeah.
And in most cases, people can heal their hydrophobic soil with this method. Sometimes they have to start with a wetting agent,
Yeah.
but which is like usually with Dr. Bronner's soap and water kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But then watering in good bacteria, mycorrhiza, keeping it moist all the time, so never too much water, not too little, and then good nutrients. Building up good and multibiotic. If you can get your hands on whey, if you know a local cheese maker. I've seen people get very creative with getting probiotics in their soil. But slowly you build a structure and it starts breaking down that material and holding moisture again.
So would the probiotics from like a living kraut or a kimchi be helpful for soil?
I've seen people do it.
Wow.
They water it down though because it's acidic.
Yeah.
It's a lactobacillus.
Yeah.
So unless you're starting with like a really alkaline, like in Colorado, clay base,
Yeah.
alkaline soil, you could lower the pH by
Yeah.
doing something like that.
Yeah, interesting. And so hydrophobic soil, obviously phobic, like phobia, means the soil doesn't like the water, the hydra part. So
It either drains off or goes straight through.
yeah, so what causes that in the first place?
The soil has died to either an extent or like fully died, where there's no good bacteria or good fungus in there, and the bacteria is what holds the water in the soil. That's what like kind of makes it like a sponge. And when the bacteria dies from not being watered for an extensive period of time, or from being solarized, from being cooked essentially, then the soil isn't alive anymore. It's basically dust at that point. I don't even call it soil at that point. So sometimes dust can be made into soil, but not all the time. So.
Interesting. Well, this soil is clearly alive, and these plants seem amazing. They're just thriving, and we just ate some of the green beans and some of the tomatoes, and they're so delicious. And you have a certain technique for how you're trimming, right?
From the bottom up,
is
everything
really
gets palm treed.
Yeah, and why is that so important?
Ventilation is super important in any kind of greenhouse structure. Plants, see this, how it's moving the leaves of the plant?
Yeah.
So I think the primary focus of ventilation is that the leaves of plants need to move for the cellular structure of the plant to be strong. They're using different methods in different agriculture now where they're actually manually moving plants, and there's like a whipping method with pot plants where you move it, like simulate animals walking by, simulate wind beating it, simulate rain pounding on it, because all of that, just like people, builds the cellular structure and the defenses of the plant. So for numerous reasons, also fungal diseases that build up in growing spaces of any kind, for numerous reasons, building the cellular structure and making that plant resilient is primary focus.
And so that's why you're trimming
so
from
that
bottom up.
air can get through, so that
Yeah.
not a lot of moisture accumulates in the leaves. So that also helps with fungal diseases, and also, catches air, and they're kind of forced up, and so they move around a little bit when the fan is on, and they're just healthier and stronger, and they get a little air through.
Yeah, all these kale plants seem super healthy. It's really fun to see them.
You can have some.
I can have some?
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
totally.
Okay.
We got loads in all the domes.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, we don't
Abundance.
turn down good fresh food.
Yeah.
So I'm so thrilled, and it sounds like you're also helping to guide some of the other gardeners on the team as to how to best take care of the soil and the plants, and that you're also available to speak with folks who actually have domes of their own, right? To help them have success. And what does that look like? Like, what are some of the situations that you hear about most often that you're helping with?
Mostly problems that people are having, that they don't know what to plant where, or they are having a pest problem of some kind that they don't know how to fix, or something that they're not familiar with, like pond plant issues, or I was literally 15 minutes ago on the phone with a lady who needs fish. So, it could be any range of things.
That's so wonderful to have that real support from the company. I think it really speaks to the goal and the objective of folks having success growing in their domes, which is wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fun too.
I so appreciate having this time with you, Heather, and I'm wondering, before we sign off for the moment, is there anything else you'd like to mention or share with our audience?
If the audience includes people who grow in domes or greenhouses or structures, when you go away for the winter, find a way to keep your soil watered. That is the biggest thing. Like, soil is alive, just like plants. It cannot be forgotten. And you won't be ultimately successful unless you focus on the health of your soil more than the health of what's up top, because the root structure of the plant is where all the health of the plant starts.
So you heard it here from Heather. Don't forget the soil.
Don't forget the water.
Especially in the winter.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Heather.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I'll go get you some kale.
Oh, thanks. That sounds great. So Lem, here we are. We just visited with Heather. That was just wonderful, and it's amazing to see the incredible expertise she's bringing to the care for the soil and the plants here with the domes.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's been gardening for over 25 years. She was with Growing Spaces for a long time, went off to pursue other ventures, so we were very thankful to have her back here at Growing Spaces with us. We've hired a couple other younger gardeners to kind of train underneath her so we can learn her techniques. So she's been really a great mentor to them as well as the whole team here at Growing Spaces. So she's been great. So I thank her very much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was wonderful. Well, listen, I'd love to circle back a little more on this work that you're doing around the Black Lives Matter movement, and obviously such a big issue in our culture right now, and there's so much healing that's needed in communities all over, and it's something you guys are engaged in as well with Growing Spaces, huh?
Yeah, I talked about the two projects at Navajo Nation and for Matterville Vets. We started those before COVID, or right about the time COVID started, so kind of before the latest phase of the Black Lives movement. We do work with an organization called Urban Growers Collective out of Chicago. They actually purchased the dome right about the time we bought the business, and we've been doing some in-kind work for them. But I think they're just a great example of how growing food locally can really improve a community, especially an urban community, because a lot of people don't really know, but urban communities can be food deserts as well.
Absolutely.
You don't have access to whole foods a lot of times. Even then, organic food is so expensive that those communities can't afford good, fresh, organic food, and they find themselves eating at McDonald's and maybe not the healthiest food. But what we've seen at Urban Growers Collective in South Chicago is it's really bringing the community together in multiple aspects. Not only providing food to the community, but providing work, paid work as well as volunteer work to the community. African Americans and whites both are working in the garden. So what we want to do is we want to do more projects like that, basically, what it comes down to. So we've offered a grant program for 2021 for urban communities specifically, where we'll be donating growing domes next year for urban communities. So if you go to our website, you'll get links to our gardening grants page, which has our grant listed as well as many other gardening and community and school garden grants listed for these types of communities to apply for that. And then we'll be working with those programs in 2021 to help build those domes, because our season is going to be coming to an end here soon. And a lot of these communities are in colder climates. We prefer it to be in a colder climate just because it's harder to grow food year round, and the dome will work better in places like South Chicago. So we're going to be looking for communities in more northern climates to work with to build growing domes so they can grow food year round and really bring the community together.
That's fabulous. As you're describing this, I've got a few folks coming to mind that I'll be sure to get this information to, because this is really going to help, I think, a lot of different communities out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're really going to try to promote it from here on out. We're also, like I said, looking for donations for the other projects to help with site prep and things of that nature, because the dome is just a piece of that. And then obviously the ongoing gardening aspect of it and keeping the dome well maintained is important as well. So I encourage you to look up Urban Growers Collective as well, because they're a great organization.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Lem. Well, listen, I know we're going to head over here in a few minutes to visit the high school. Where they're building the dome, and we'll get to see some of the construction in action. And then after that, we'll visit with the founders, Udgar and Pooja, downtown at the community space there. But before we take off to go do that, Lem, is there anything else you'd like to say or share with our audience?
Yeah, on that regard, I'm just so thankful that you guys took the time to come down here to Pagosa. I know it was a long drive to come down here, but this is where the company was built. We want to remain active in this community. Like I said, we're donating food to the food hubs. We actively support the geothermal project through in-kind donations and helping to maintain those 3 domes. And Udgar and Pooja really built a strong foundation right here in Pagosa Springs. And to have the manufacturing of the domes local here, to be able to hire local resources, we buy mostly U.S. components. And to have a U.S.-based, Colorado-based manufacturing facility is just incredible, especially here in Pagosa Springs. And what they've done in this small community is really built a national brand, an international brand, right here in small town Pagosa. So as we grow the business internationally, we're also trying to keep a very strong footprint right here in Pagosa, and that's what I wanted to show you today as well, both at the high school and the geothermal project.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Lem. It's wonderful visiting with you and sharing all of this with our audience.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you again for coming down.
All right, so we'll go visit a couple sites. Come on, everybody. So here we are at Pagosa High School with Principal Sean O'Donnell.
Hello.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Great. Thanks for visiting with Lem and me and telling us a bit about the project you got going on here.
You're welcome. Glad to.
And Lem, I know you probably can kind of guide us through the discussion here a little bit with what's going on.
Yeah, no, we've been working on this project with Pagosa High for a couple of years now. It's right in our hometown, so we were always really excited about it. But what we're more excited about is when it's completed and what it's actually going to be used for. So, Sean, tell us a little bit of how you're going to use this dome for your vocational programs.
You bet. So we're fortunate to have a kind of a small 6-foot dome that we have here on the property, and we've been using it with our ag programs. They've been, growing a few things in there. They do have some hydroponics going, so they've been fiddling with that a little bit and growing some tilapia. And at the end of the season, trying to find people to buy the tilapia or whatever. But the time came that we're just kind of outgrowing that. We've got more demand from kids wanting to take more agriculture classes, and then we're actually this year adding a horticulture class. But hard to do horticulture in our climate, if you really want to grow anything year round. So this obviously presented itself as the right facility to do that. So we're excited about opportunities that it's going to provide our kids.
Yeah, what's great about school domes is the fact that the growing season here in Colorado is in the summer when kids are out of school.
Yeah.
So it's so nice to have a year-round environment where you can teach kids horticulture in the middle of winter.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then we've also got our science teachers are a little bit anxious to get in there also. Provide some opportunities, especially in your biology classes and things like that, to do some experimentation that you really can't do in a regular classroom. So don't know what those are going to be yet, but I really feel like sky's the limit on the opportunities to use this facility to expand just opportunities for the kids.
Yeah, it's so great to give them the hands-on experience to accompany a lot of the theoretical science that they're learning out of the books and so on.
Absolutely. It's one thing to see it on a video, it's a whole other thing to actually pull it off live and means so much more. Yeah. So it's a good deal for us.
And you have some local chefs working on the project as well, right? Both
we do.
In teaching culinary arts as well as using it for the local restaurants.
We
right?
do. Yeah, for sure. We're very fortunate with Todd Stevens being our director of our food service program. He's got some plans. He helps us with our culinary arts program. We've got some plans in there also to do some farm to table type things. So as that culinary arts program expands, we'll have the kids kind of grow their food, and that could be a collaboration between classes even. The horticulture class, maybe growing some things, culinary class in there, and then actually harvest, take that into the kitchen and make food out of it. And then, I know Todd has some ideas to do some farm to table stuff even for just the general food service program. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, it's all in the infant stages, but I feel like the sky's the limit.
It's so cool from my perspective to see that you guys have developed such a strong vocational training program here. And I know talking with some other educators in other parts of the state or even around the country that in many places the students don't have those same kinds of opportunities. And it's great you're giving them, again, that hands-on training opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you saying that. I'm a big believer in it, in the vocational trades and all those different fields and giving kids those opportunities. Personally, I'd like to, we try to be mindful of our own local community. And for those kids that maybe don't want to go to college, if we can give them some skills and some hands-on stuff while they're in high school, that maybe they can get into those entry-level things in our community and establish themselves. But that comes from having programs, like our ag programs, our building trades, all the different kind of programs that we've been adding here lately. It's crucial to have those programs for those kids. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're excited about it because, here at Growing Spaces, like I said, you're in our backyard, so we're excited to be able to hire some kids out of that program when they're done with it, both from the construction of the domes, as you can see, as well as the gardening and the culinary aspects of it for our own purposes. Yeah.
Well, it's great. We're standing here, and behind us is a live build going on of the dome itself, and we can see the fellas are putting up some of the timbers there. And Lem, I was wondering if maybe you'd just explain real quick what we're seeing here in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually on the first day of the build, so you can see it's going up relatively quickly. One unique thing about this dome is the stem wall is made out of concrete. So Pagosa High wanted the concrete stem wall, so that was here when we got here, and then we anchor bolt into that and then start on the dome build. And we're just going to go up with the struts in a spiral until we get to the top, and then after that we'll put on the polycarbonate glazing. This whole build will probably take us about 5 days with 3 crew members. So it really goes up real quick, and then Pagosa can start working on the beds inside and the build out of the dome itself.
Yeah, that's great. That really is a quick build. Yeah. That's impressive. Well, great. Well, just want to, again, thank you, Principal Sean. How do they call you? Principal O'Donnell, I suppose the kids would probably call you.
It's
Mr.
mostly Mr. O.
Mr. O. All right, Mr. O.
That's the typical one. Yeah. Well, some of them can get colorful in their language. They don't always spell my name right or say my name right, but Mr. O typically.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you taking the time
thank you
to
guys.
visit
I
with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was great
Thank
to see
you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we are now in the educational dome in downtown Pagosa with Udgar and Pooja Parsons. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you both. And you are the founders of Growing Spaces. So in many respects, what we're experiencing right now is the result of your work over, I understand, a number of years. And
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. Wonderful. And I know we have a common connection back to the Roaring Fork Valley. where our friends at Sustainable Settings and other amazing projects are doing wonderful work as well. And here we are a few hours away by car. And it's just lovely to be in this space with this trellis with all of these grapes growing and figs behind us and all kinds of beautiful foliage. So I want to ask you, upon your recent retirement, what is the feeling you have with the legacy that you've been able to help create for Pagosa and for folks using the domes in places all around the continent? Pooja, maybe you could answer that.
Well, the fact that Growing Spaces is so busy right now is just incredible to us because, you know, it was a slow start. It took many years, but just our whole idea of living a healthy lifestyle and teaching people about natural systems is happening. It's like we were before our time, just like John Denver and Buckminster Fuller, who helped to begin it, and now is our time. This is the time when all of us need to take a break, take a pause, and learn about all the kinds of things that you're interviewing people about.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives me, I know, a lot of hope, and it seems that people really are mobilizing in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me the exciting part was when I first went into the big dome at Windsor, a 50-foot dome, in the middle of November, and there was plants just growing like crazy, and it was like going from Alaska to Florida in one step. And I was so inspired back then that I thought, I've got to make these available to people because you can grow year-round in the Rocky Mountains with no heater. And that's unheard of. Everybody shuts down their garden after the first frost in September, and that's it till May, where you may or may not get a frost again. But with the growing dome, you know, you can grow all year round without a beat. So that's what excited me, and using no fossil fuel energy. These are net zero greenhouses, and in this day and age when we're all aware of climate change and the effects of burning fossil fuels on our climate, it's really, really important that we do whatever we can do in whatever way we can do it to cut down our use of fossil fuel energy. So.
Yeah, Udgar, absolutely. And I know you were telling me just before we started filming about your own grow dome at home that you've had a number of years, and you've only had to heat it a few days out of all that time?
1 week in 22 years.
Amazing.
When it was cloudy for a whole week, there was no sun whatsoever, and then it went down to 25 below. And I was starting to get a little bit of ice on the pond, so I thought, okay, I'll heat it. But the rest of the time, it's grown all winter long with no heater whatsoever, just the natural systems of the dome that work together to create the year-round growing situation.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And I know, Pooja, here we are, again, downtown Pagosa, and there are 3 domes clustered together. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on right here with this project?
Well, the excitement here is the use of the geothermal heat, and that's in addition to the normal growing domes, but we have 3 different kinds of growing domes. This is the education dome, started about 3 years ago, which is why it's really coming into fruition. About 2 years or a year and a half ago, we started the community dome over there, and some of the people that were outside in the community garden by the river have moved inside, and we're all contributing now to the food banks. And then the newest will be the innovation dome, and that's not quite ready yet. So I'm going to save that as a surprise. But you can go to the Geothermal Greenhouse Partnership or pagosagreen.org.
For more information.
For more information.
Oh,
yeah.
beautiful. And we'll be sure to have those links in the show notes just for
Okay.
some additional information
Great.
for folks.
It's pretty exciting to have 3 big growing domes right downtown.
Absolutely.
You know, right by
yeah.
the river. It's just amazing.
It's beautiful. And as we walked up, there were all kinds of folks milling about and
Yeah.
checking things out. It's such
They're
a great
always interested.
attraction.
Yeah.
Well,
And
the
it-
beautiful thing is you don't really need the geothermal energy to have a growing dome that will grow year-round. Any community could do this, and there are different communities and a lot of schools throughout the country that have chosen a growing dome to demonstrate year-round growing, and children growing their own food and seeing from a seed to a plant to harvest, to see the natural cycles of nature. I think it's wonderful for kids to be able to do that.
Yes, absolutely. It's such an important part of the education for our youngsters, and it's to me incredibly encouraging to see school programs all around the country incorporating this kind of experience and hands-on opportunity for students all over the place. And speaking of all over the place, I know you guys have helped get domes in all kinds of different communities, and I don't know how many domes has Growing Spaces provided the world up to this point.
Well, we have domes in 14 countries as far afield as New Zealand and South Africa. We've got quite a few in Europe, Canada, and so on. So I've actually lost count, so I couldn't really answer that question. But quite a lot.
Yeah, and the fun thing was we started in the Roaring Fork Valley, and it didn't really take off there. But when we came here, within the first 5 years, we had 100 growing domes in Pagosa Springs, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Started to take off like hotcakes or something, huh? As they say. Well, I'm just wondering, you both have been pioneers in this stewardship and sustainability movement, and we've been talking about climate action, we've been talking about soil regeneration, and we've got a very diverse audience through the Y on Earth Community Network, and I'm wondering if you might share a few words of wisdom or encouragement or inspiration with folks coming from all kinds of backgrounds and ages and geographic locations about living in these times that we're living in. Pooja, may I ask you that first?
Yeah, for me, I was telling you that I felt like the people you're interviewing were many of them before their time, and I definitely know that John Denver and Buckminster Fuller were before their time, and all the people that we knew in those days in the 80s. But as I watched the interviews and as I listened with excitement about you talking about dirt and how important it is and where that all starts, and that you're connecting the dots all the way up to good health for both the body and for the body of the planet, there's a sense that this is our time, that COVID sort of gave us a pause so we could sort of reset maybe. And because of the looming mortality involved, we're really having to be serious about looking at what we've done to the health of the planet, or to even our interconnectedness. It's a unifying moment, really. And so, I don't know, it feels like the work we did is carrying on that vision that's been living in a lot of different people, a community of people across the world, like you, and now you're educating and people are living it, and there's more a sense of talking the walk rather than walking the talk. And that really is what we wanted to do with our business, because we wanted to prove with the business that if it's a conscious business and you're living in harmony with nature and you're pointing to the interconnectedness of things, and educating people and helping each other, there's a natural way that it all works. And it doesn't have to be in compartments that are separated out. It can also show how the planet works, how nature works. Nature is interconnected and it flows, So we always just wanted to get people into their gardens and help them become healthy again. And in a microscopic way, they would have that macroscopic view by just experiencing that and caring about what they eat and loving the taste of it.
Yeah. You're speaking to one of my favorite topics, which is the transition to regenerative economics from extractive economics, and that we can not only build businesses that are good for other people, but we can thrive with businesses that are helping others to thrive.
Absolutely.
And that is the way nature works. It's regenerative. We have a super abundant planet that we share, and it's time to get our economics in line with that reality.
Yep. We wanted to be a part of that. We didn't know how to be business people because he was a dentist and I was a therapist, but we knew about nutrition because we'd helped our own bodies and we'd healed ourselves. And we'd helped our clients. So learning to be business people was so that we could prove that this is a money-making thing. This is something that the economy could be based on. These kinds of values. We had to lead with our values.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And maybe you're hearing in the background some of the sprinklers are coming on. I think Lem, who's off camera, might be getting wet, but we're not sure, can't tell exactly. A little chuckle anyway. So Udgar, I want to just pose the same question to you. If you have any words of inspiration or wisdom to share with our audience in these times, it would be wonderful to hear that.
Yeah, I think for me, knowledge is power. And there's so much knowledge available on the internet, people celebrating what they've done, whatever you want to learn about, it's there, it's available. It's an incredible time that these are not closely held secrets anymore. And so I just encourage people, whatever excites you, whatever you feel attracted to, go for it, because there's a huge amount of support. You know, not only on the internet, but with friends and community. I think community is also very important. The days of living in isolation in a cave in the Himalayas, that's not where it is anymore. It's like we need to connect and we need to be in community and share with each other our excitement and our wisdom. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. Well, I'm so grateful we had the opportunity to visit with you all and to share a bit of this time out with our audience. And before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm grateful for your work, and I'm grateful for Lem's work, that your generation and your children are just doing it. We're so grateful to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would just say, ever onward.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Bye, everybody.
The Y on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series is hosted by Aaron William Perry, author, thought leader, and executive consultant. The podcast and video recordings are made possible by the generous support of people like you. To sign up as a daily, weekly, or monthly supporter, please visit yonearth.org/support. Support packages start at just $1 per month. The podcast series is also sponsored by several corporate and organization sponsors. You can get discounts on their products and services using the code YONEARTH, all one word with a Y. These sponsors are listed on the yonearth.org/support page. If you found this particular podcast episode especially insightful, informative, or inspiring, please pass it on and share it with a friend whom you think will also enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And thank you for being a part of the Y on Earth community.